Hey everyone, Joshua Kirk here with you once again, and now it's time for episode 261 of Album of the Day, which once again, yet another review in quarantine. Today for this review I'm going to be talking about a New York indie folk and rock outfit that I've been wanting to talk about for the last couple of years on this channel, but just never got to really in depth. But I've been a fan of this band since 2018. Definitely one of my favorite indie acts of the 2010s and probably one of my favorite bands, period, of the 2010s. I'm talking about the band known as Big Thief. And I'm here to review their fourth studio album and their second album of 2019, released on October 11th of that year. And the album is called Two Hands. As you can see, I had the vinyl here. I bought this at Soundgarden on one of the last visits I took there before I had to stay at home all this time, and that's time. And here's a photo of the band, kind of surrounded by trees or whatnot. It's definitely not the most sort of out there bells and whistles kind of album cover, but given the kind of raw and sort of natural sound of the record, I think this makes complete and total sense with the sound of this album, and I think it's very beautiful. Here's the back of the vinyl. There's 10 songs on here, and it's over 39 minutes. And I love me a gatefold, especially when it's a gatefold that's got all the lyrics in it, like this one here. Produced by Andrew Sarlo, who's worked with the band for a little while, and recorded at Sonic Ranch and the legendary Sound City recording studio. Legendary. Here's the vinyl. There's side A, and then there's side B. And that's the vinyl packaging for Two Hands, the new record from Big Thief. So, like most people, my first taste of Big Thief was their 2017 sophomore record, Capacity, even though I didn't get to listen to the album until fall of 2018. But I will say, right out of the gate, I was floored when I heard that album. I thought it was very lovely and beautiful. Loved Adrian Lenker's voice. Definitely one of the most unique voices in indie music right now. Also, the sound of the record, though it was kind of dreamy and a little bit hazy, it actually had some fantastic performances as well as some very lushly arranged instrumentation. Even if they're not necessarily slapping on a bunch of strings or any crazy stuff or anything like that. It's just a really solid, very well produced and written indie folk record. So I was excited when the band announced the album UFOF back in February of 2019. But when I heard it, it unfortunately didn't quite live up to my expectations. I think it's probably Big Thief's weakest album, which I know is kind of a hot take. I mean, there are people that say it's their best album, and I respect that, and respect that. Not that I thought it was a terrible record. I think the teaser tracks are still very good, and I thought the record overall was pretty decent. but just it didn't, blow me away or the way their last album did, mostly because there was some kind of lackluster, somewhat undercut songwriting on that album, and also the record wasn't a very coherent listen either. But as a fan, I remained faithful that the band could wow me once again, and upon hearing the teaser tracks for Two Hands, that definitely very much became a possibility. This could be, a return to form. And upon hearing Two Hands, I'm very happy to say this is the follow-up that I wanted to hear to their last album. Like, another kind of hot take, this album over UFOF, 100% for me. In fact, it's probably even a little better than I thought it would be, too. I would say it's Big Thief's best album. The group does go back to basics on this record. This isn't, the more lush and mysterious sound that UFOF dished out. This is basically just two guitars, bass, and drums. It's kind of like the approach the band took to their debut album, Masterpiece, just with better songwriting and production. In fact, this is probably the best produced and most polished Big Thief album I've ever heard, but then at the same time, it's also very raw, and I think it really is a record that really allows Adrienne Lenker's voice to shine through that much more, as it's gotten better and better, as has her poetry. The opening track, Rock and Sing, is definitely a very lovely opener to the record, and definitely one that right out of the gate does showcase some really memorable lines, including the line about confusing my home for a refuge. Huge. I think melodically it's very beautiful too. Then once we get into the track Forgotten Eyes, which was a great teaser track for this record, we do get more themes kind of about evolution and kind of the nature of humans a little bit. So the cover art along with the kind of stripped back sound, I think only adds to that aesthetic incredibly well. And there are definitely, and I think Adrienne's singing performance on the song, I think, sells these lyrics in a fantastic way as she sings stuff like forgotten dance is the one left at birth, forgotten plants and the fossils of earth. They've long passed, but they are no less the dirt of the common soil, keeping us dry and warm. Love the melody on this track. I think it's very triumphant, and I love how it's beautiful, but at the same time, kind of rocks a little bit too. In fact, this is probably the heaviest album Big Thief has ever done, in my opinion. So this is kind of their straightforward rock record. The song The Toy, however, takes a much more somber approach to lyrical content. The song seems to be about kind of, discovering something new that's happened in your life and then kind of feeling a little bit, kind of a little bit terrified by it because it's just so, unlike anything you've ever experienced before. And it's definitely a very powerful song too, especially in the third verse when we get, when the song gets a little louder and Adrienne's singing is very emotional. It's definitely one of the most rewarding moments on the album. The track Two Hands is definitely one of the more hypnotic cuts on the record. Love the chiming lead guitar riff, the very intricately layered percussion on the song. And I think the song almost sounds kind of psychedelic at points too, especially in that chorus, and there's that really cool kind of sped up, what sounds like a sped up version of a previously recorded guitar riff as the solo on the track. track. The song seems to be sort of dealing with a relationship and sort of kind of the hardships that come with, getting into probably a new relationship or something like that. The song "Those Girls" is kind of. So, then we have the song "Those Girls," which I think is also very beautiful. Has one of the best bass lines on the record too. And sort of a song about how we all, as humans, we all kind of have our little inner demons that only someone we know, who we can trust, can really hold them down. And that line of the one, the only jealousy I have is dying just hits like a ton of bricks, honestly. And I think there's a line in the song that goes, "Island, demons, Zoe, you come over now," which could be a reference to, like, Adrianne Lenker actually does have, like, a family member, probably a sibling, named Zoe, who actually provides background vocals to some of their other records, especially Capacity. Then the song "Shoulders" goes for kind of the heavier, more rousing rock sound once again. It's definitely a very powerful song too. I love how her singing kind of turns from maybe a semi-scream in the chorus, especially when she sings that line of "and the blood of my man, of the man who killed my mother with his hands, is in me. It's in me, in my veins." But then we get into my favorite track on the record, as well as my favorite Big Thief song, and my favorite song of 2019. I'm making a bunch of pretty bold statements about this track, and it's the song "Not," the first teaser track for the record, and I definitely love one that I really liked right out of the gate, even though progressively, as I've listened to it, and especially in the context of the album, it's grown on me that much more. I love how this is the kind of song where lyrically it could be interpreted in a bunch of different ways. It's the kind of song that I can't really tell you exactly what it's about, but I don't need to. I can just let Adrianne Lenker do it for the listener, because it's just so, like, in your face, and I really feel something when I listen to it. And also another track where I love how her singing kind of turns into a scream, like, toward the end of the song. It's so cathartic. I'm just shouting along as she's doing it. But then 3 minutes in, we get the most epic goddamn guitar solo of 2019. It's the kind of solo that, that isn't just your, typical cliched macho kind of like, it's like, it's one that actually has some real emotional depth to it. And I think given the sort of attitude of the lyrics, I love how it kind of all sort of bleeds into that solo almost, and it's making all kinds of, like, wild noises and stuff like that, and just, like, when that solo hits, I just lose my shit over this song. It's just so good. Damn. Then we get a little bit more of a ballad with the track "Wolf," which I think is really nice in the context of the album. After just the very rousing "Not," we get kind of a little bit of a calm after the storm, even if its lyrics, as you keep listening, do turn out to be rather kind of dark and sort of murderous, as the song kind of ends with our main character being eaten and killed by a wolf. And I think melodically the song is really beautiful. I think Buck Meek's finger-picked guitar playing on the track is gorgeous. Adrianne Lenker's kind of ooze that she does after last couple of verses I think is very soothing too. Like I love just how like soothing her voice can be. These are definitely Big Thief's the kind of band that whose songs are sad, but at the same time they're like very poignant at the same time. I mean, the at the same time in that I can listen to this pretty much on any day, unlike other indie folk records like A Crow Looked at Me by Mount Eerie that I really have to be in the mood for because they're just so heart wrenching. The Ching these the following track replaced is a pretty decent track, I would say. But if I had to pick probably the weakest song on the record, it'd have to be this one. I mean, Tune Wise, it's not that bad, but lyrically it feels a little bit patience testing and kind of leaves a little to be desired. And also the track pacing wise feels a little bit sleepy and kind of slow in my opinion. But then the album I think ends on a very high note with the track "Cut My Hair," a very gut wrenching murder ballad, which I love how it's not just your typical run of the mill murder ballad. It's just somebody wanting to. That's just our protagonist wanting to kill somebody because they did them wrong or cheated on them or something. This is a way more kind of poignant and sort of there's a deeper sense of longing to this track. Like she's singing about wanting her life to end in just like the most elegant kind of way. It definitely is definitely something that could fit into the track list of Capacity, given its lyrical direction and how kind of folky but also kind of hazy it is at the same time. In fact, it's probably the closest this album comes to that kind of direction. This is such an amazing record. It's only gotten better with every listen that I've given it. Hence why it made it into my top 10 of 2019. And I think it totally deserves all the critical praise it's receiving as well. Even their last album, even though I didn't love it that much, it was still great to see that Big Thief was finally getting the recognition and the kind of praise and the praise and the attention that they really deserve. Because they're really on to something now. They got a very bright future ahead of them. And can't wait to see where their musical future takes them. And there's not much more I can say other than tell me that guitar solo on Not does not give you chills. Strong 9 out of 10 for this new Big Thief record, Two Hands, and I'll see you for episode 262. And by the way, hope all of you stay safe and are healthy, protecting yourself from COVID-19 right now, and, enjoying your time at home. And, if you want to cut the monotony and want to check out a new band, Big Thief is probably a good one to check out.